Just close the door. Okay. Okay. Welcome all of you. Today I'll be taking your JKPSC Jammu Kashmir Public Service Commission JKPSC, and I'll be discussing with environmental science. Perfectly fine. This is a new course for the lecturership of class 10+2, and I'll be taking all your 95 topics that are mentioned in the syllabus of JKPCS. Perfectly fine. Let's start with it. Just shut this, preparing to export here. Okay, good to go. Yeah, we'll just settle out for a moment and let's start. So, giving a brief introduction about myself, I am Shivam Garg, and as you can see, I'm twice UPSC qualified civil service examination, and I was also allocated the cadre. Along with that, I'm also CBSE board topper of class 12th in chemistry, and further, I'm having an experience of more than 15 years in various domains of science and its related subjects. Moving forward, let's start with our course. So, the first topic of your syllabus for JKPCS Environment Science Lecturership is what is environment. Now, we all have a very vague idea about what environment is, what ecology is, what environment science is. I'm going to elaborate and elucidate this for you कि इन तीनों में what is the basic prime difference, so that you get not confused what is what. Alright? Starting with what is environment. As you know, environment science consists of two components, environment and science. Right? Environment, as it said, is a French word which was environneer से derive हुआ, and it means to encircle. And who gave? The biologist Jacob van Eurekel gave this term. Now, to encircle means what? It means that it is a holistic domain which encompasses everything. What does it encompass? It encompasses with land, it encompasses with water, it encompasses with air, and all of these three components, their relationship with humans and other living organisms like animals and plants. So this is what is called as environment. I'll repeat myself again. It is the study of interactions, or it is the sum total of land, water, air with humans and other living organisms. Professionally, if we have to derive, it is said as the sum total of yeah. Just a moment. Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. It is a sum total of all land, water, air interrelationships among themselves and with human beings and other living organisms. Perfectly fine. So this is one definition that we have got to know, and now we are going to move further to what ecology is, what environmental science is. अभी हमने environmental science का एक component पढ़ लिया, right? What component? Environment. Let's move further to understand what science is. We all know what is science. Science can be of many things. Here we are talking, it is a study which actually helps us to define the environment. And what is the utility of environment science? The utility of environment science is that it studies three components: physical, chemical, and biological components with a focus. Mind it, this study's outcome is that it helps us to solve various issues of environment which is currently seen in present day scenario. So it focuses on environmental pollution and degradation. So that is what is called environmental science. I told you what is environment. I told you what is environmental science. It is a study of interactions amongst three components: PCB. Don't consider as physics, chemistry, biology. Physical, chemical, and biological components of environment having a focus to solve the problems of environment pollution and degradation. Right? Coming together, it is more I have elaborated. It is a subject, interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary subject, which deals with many holistic components. Because if you study this subject in a very holistic way, you will be able to solve many issues of all these components, PCB. That's why its utility can be seen in physics, life sciences, medical sciences, agriculture, public health, sanitary, engineering, geography, chemistry, atmospheric science, and geology. All of them are different domains, but the core fact is the study of environmental science. Right? Let's move further. It also deals with studies of processes in soil, water. I've already told you, as I've said, geology, water, air, and organisms which lead to the pollution or environmental damages, and the scientific basis for the establishment of a standard which can be considered for a clean, safe, healthy for human beings and natural ecosystems. All what I have to say here is that if this subject is read to the core of it, then it will help us to solve various issues which we are seeing in present day environmental scenarios of all over the world. I mean, across the world you can see. So that is how it is. Now, having said, we have discussed environmental science, environment, and coming down, we are going to study now what is ecology. It's like I am actually building a basic block, and that basic block, you can just see what was environment, a basic block. What is environmental science? A step ahead. What is ecology? It is what is encircling the whole thing. What is ecology? It is basically the study. Like I say, biology. What is biology? It is a study. In a similar manner, ecology is a study of interactions between an organism and its environment. Like if I say, I am a human being, and for that human being, whatever this human being is dealing with outside surroundings, be it in the form of air, water, land, and many other different components, all this study is called as ecology. Study of the interactions of an individual with its environment. Perfectly fine. Let's move ahead. Yeah. Now, what is the scope of environmental science? I already said this before, that environmental science helps to cover many problems: conservation of natural resources, ecological aspects, pollution, controlling the pollution, social issues. What are social issues? How many of you have heard about Chipko Andolan? Or how many of you heard about various forest dwellers who actually depend upon the forest produce, minor forest produce, cultivated or grown within that forest, and their livelihood depends upon it. So all that is also in coherence to social issues. So this particular subject, environmental science, can be related to social issues, Also the impacts of human population on the environment. Why are we seeing these natural calamities happening almost in every part of the world almost every day? Somewhere it's landslides, somewhere it's forest fires, somewhere is there earthquakes, tornadoes, God knows what all features that we are seeing. What is the cause behind this? It's all the okay. Let's move further. Now, having said that, importance of environmental science. As I have mentioned, environmental science draws its importance in almost every domain. Somewhere or the other down the line, you can find an interrelationship of every cause behind a calamity or behind an environmental issue due to of the study of environment. And so let's discuss. First thing, we can see these issues escalating not only in India or probably in any particular state, but this is happening globally. And what is the cause behind it? It's very well mentioned. See, issues like global warming, ozone depletion, acid rain, marine pollution, biodiversity are not national issues, like I said, but they are global issues and hence require international efforts and cooperation to solve them. No wonder there are so many summits where different world leaders meet up and they discuss to solve various environmental pollution problems. Further which, even the development aspect is also related to the environmental science. Haven't you heard about this term? That developed countries are portraying certain amount of funds for the development or for the least developing or probably developing countries. Why are they doing so? It is just to curb the problem of environmental pollution, degradation, and various other aspects. And so their so their development like urbanization, industrial growth, telecommunication, transportation system, high-tech agriculture, and housing, all of them are causing in some amount or probably in a larger amount environmental pollution. So here the study of the importance of ES comes into picture. Like I said, when the West developed, it did so perhaps in ignorance of environmental impact of its activity. Now you can very well see what New York was in 1930s and what it is in 2020s. You can see the population density, or you can see the land use. There's a drastic impact. What when was open free land is now urbanized structures. So development of the rich countries of the world has undesirable effects on the environment of the entire world, isn't it? Just a moment. Just come 1 second. Hi. Yeah, perfect. Sorry for a technical glitch. I'm a little new to the system, that's why all this is coming up, as it being my first class. I'm sure in classes coming ahead, this is going to be a huge course, and the length shall also be spanning around 60 to 70 classes probably, or maybe in range of 50 to 60 also you can say, but depending upon what the course details are. So then all these issues will not be escalating that time. But as of now, please bear with it. So as I said, we were discussing about the importance of environmental science. Also, here comes another aspect of environmental science. And what is that aspect? Explosive increase in pollution. I just now mentioned about, I gave you the example of New York. It simply says we are basically dealing with now India here. And as you see, that evidently with 17.78%, this is the India's population according to the world's population in comparison to it, with only 2.4% of the land area. Now you can see what is population density. It is so high, with only 2.4% land area. All these percentages are in comparison to the world population and world land area, right? So there's a heavy pressure on the natural resources, including the land. Naturally, when for one piece of land there are 1,000 people fighting, you can understand there will be huge amount of scarcity and drastic effects on natural resources. Agriculture experts have even recognized that soil health problems, naturally, we have seen soil leaching. I'm sure you must have heard about this term. If not, we shall be discussing in the subsequent classes. Then deficiency of micronutrients, soil salinity, a very big issue, and damage of soil structure. Today, if time permits and class allows, we shall be touching the topic of earth. In that, we shall be even discussing about soil structure, how the topsoil is being laid off, is being run off. Okay. Now, of course, as we were discussing the importance of ES, there is a need for an alternative solution, isn't it? Yes. So what is the need? What is the alternative solution? It is basically for developing countries to find alternative paths to an alternative goal. Like, one should always support SDG. What is SDG? Sustainable Development Goals, which each country should comply in order for world peace. A goal common to all citizens of our planet Earth. You should not look for just, our India or probably our US. It should be a coherent ecosystem for the whole world. In a similar manner, a goal distant from the developing world in the manner it is from the over-consuming societies of the developed world. Like I said, it should not look in this manner that only the developed countries continue to flourish and the developing are suffering. It should be a coherent goal for each one of us. It is utmost important for us to save the humanity from extinction because of our activities constricting the environment and depleting the biosphere in the name of development. We know, we have seen so many species, be it plant, be it animal, even some sort of Homo sapiens also have or are being extincted every moment. Why? Because it is a very concerning situation where we are seeing that because of human development and in the name of development, that these species are suffering. And moreover, the whole ecosystem is suffering. I will come and tell in the further slides where you will understand that an ecosystem doesn't comprise of just one or two species. It is a whole sum of all species which actually calculate the biosphere. Okay, let's move further. So, like I said, certain terms I have just put out ecology we have discussed, environment we have discussed, environment science we have discussed. There are many other terms which we'll be discussing in further terms. And why these terms are important? These terms are important so as to understand each factor of the word environment. There are so many components to it, and to understand these components, these terms are very important. Let's move further. And let's discuss each one of these terms one by one. So first term is ecology. Right? I've just told what is ecology. It is a study. Study of what? And interactions of organisms with their environment. Okay? Now in an environment, you know there can be many different organisms also. Right? So all of their interrelationships, this with this with this, interrelationships are also calculated in an ecology. Right? Let's move further. Ecosystem. Now ecosystem, what is it? It is coined by the term by Arthur Tansley in 1935. It is community. Now ecosystem, like I said, of all life forms in concurrence with non-living and living components. Now there are two components to it. Two components means ecosystem consists of biotic and abiotic. Biotic are those which have life in it. Abiotic, which do not have life in it, like temperature, humidity. Right? These are some of the components. Perfectly fine. What are biotic components? We know plants, we know animals, but tell me one thing, is dead and decaying matter also biotic component? Is dead and decaying matter also a biotic component? Tell me. Yes, it is. Why is it? Because I said biotic are those which are either derived from living organisms or they are components of living organisms. Now dead and decaying matter are actually derived from living organisms, and that's why it is in a biotic segment of ecosystem. Abiotic components: temperature, humidity, humus. These are all abiotic components. One more thing I will say. I'll give you one example of soil. You tell me, what is it? Is it biotic or abiotic? It is mixture of both. Biotic also, abiotic also. How? You have the dead and decaying matter. You have the humus, which is the major component of soil. So soil is one sort of ecosystem which has both biotic and abiotic components. Right? So as I've said, it is a community where in concurrence means together. Together with non-living and living components, they live together. That is what is called as in ecosystem. Further, environment I have already discussed. It's a repetition, I guess. Sum total of all the conditions and influences that organisms have on Earth. Okay. Let's move to another terms. Now, we are discussing with ecotone and ecoline and edge effect. Now, what is ecotone? It is basically, like I will say, there are two different ecosystems. Means, like I've said now, what ecosystem is, where biotic and abiotic components are there. Like, let it be, this is ecosystem 1. This is ecosystem 2. Okay. So, it is a zone of junction or transition area. This transition area that you are seeing, it is on ecotone, where two communities, community 1, community 2, I will be discussing what is community in detail in the coming slides, so don't you worry. These communities, when they're interacting, so this type of distinctive, please remember, there is a distinctive area, and that is known as ecotone. Okay, I have given some examples, this being a very prominent example, mangrove forest. Mangrove forests are an ecosystem between the marine and the terrestrial ecosystem. Similarly, grassland, again an ecosystem between forests and deserts. Further, estuary, ecosystem between fresh water and salt water. Again, riverbank, ecosystem between wetland and dry land. So, ecotone between wetland and dry land. So you have got a prominent difference between both ecotone. Now let's discuss ecoline. What is ecoline? It is a gradual but continuous change. Please remember, you cannot, this is not, basically there is no distinctive property. This is one sort of prime difference between both of them. There is no sharp boundary between the two in terms of species composition. Why I'm saying so? Like if you see, when you have the marine and the terrestrial ecosystem, the species are also varying. All of their features are also varying. But here, the composition between both the ecosystems is almost continuous. You will not find a distinctive feature. It occurs across the environmental gradient, gradual change in abiotic factors. Abiotic factors I've just discussed: altitude, temperature, thermocline, salinity, depth. What is thermocline and what is halocline? Can anybody of you tell me what is thermocline and what is halocline? Thermocline is when the temperature changes very rapidly. Just 1 second, this font is quite... And what is halocline? When the salinity or the salt content right. Now, having discussed both ecotone and ecocline, I'm sure you'll be able to demarcate the difference in any of the MCQ that comes in your paper of JKPCS. Let's discuss with edge effect and edge species. What are edge effect? Now, edge effect is basically the changes, like I said, it's edge species also, changes in the population that occur at the boundary of ecotone, where sometimes in number of species and the population density of some other species in ecotone is much greater than either community. The organisms which occur primarily in this zone are known as edge species. In one particular community, you can find that the population is increasing, while in the other community, you find that the population is not significantly increasing. This effect is known as edge effect. And the species which are on an increasing side are known as edge species. That's why it's between, we discussed ecotone here, it's between both of these communities, right? Let's move further. Ecological niche. Now, what is ecological niche? There are many different components to this term. It's not, you cannot say that ecological niche is of one type. There are basic habitat niche, food niche, reproductive niche, physical and chemical niche. But what actually is niche? It is a unique, basically only for that particular species can we have this particular ecological niche. मतलब एक स्पीशी के पर्टिकुलरली उसके ऊपर उसको क्या चाहिए उसके ऊपर डिपेंडेंट होता है. दैट इज नोन एज द इकोलॉजिकल नीश फॉर दैट पर्टिकुलर स्पीशी इन टर्म्स ऑफ हैबिtat, फूड और physical and chemical resources. Let's talk about it further. So it refers to the unique functional role and the position in its habitat or ecosystem. True. Now what is habitat niche? Where it lives. We can very simply say that all the cat family, basically the cheetahs or probably the lions, they prefer terrestrial ecosystem. So that means the habitat niche of the cat family is terrestrial ecosystem. True. Food niche. What is food niche? What it eats or decomposes or what it competes with. That is known as the food species, food niche. I'm sure what, say for example, a small fish, okay, yeah, so whatever a fish and suppose for example say a big cat, probably leopard, both of them have a different food niche, as both of them have different food requirements and both of them compete in a different domain for their food. So that's why this is known as food niche. In a similar example, what is reproductive niche? Now there are some egg-laying and then there's some reproducing. So again, how and when it reproduces. True. Different organisms have different mating seasons. So this is known as there, if on whole, if you can encompass, it is a reproductive niche. What is physical and chemical niche? Again, the temperature, the humidity, the land slope and the land shape, those species want to stay. Like for example, a polar bear, or probably if you consider a camel, both of them have a different physical and chemical niche. Some wants to stay in polar areas, some want to stay in savannas or probably in deserts areas, because their body accommodates and accumulates in between that domain, right? That's why camel is acclimatizing in hot and dry climates, whereas polar bears are seen in polar areas, right? So we have to conserve the species in their native habitat. We should know about the niche requirements of these species. This is very important line. You know about this. For any animal which has to be in their own natural habitat, if you want them to stay for a longer period of time, you should understand all different types of niche, particularly to that particular species. If you are seeing that India just now and even previously has migrated many tigers from African subcontinent. Why? I mean, there can be many drastic effects that we are bringing a tiger from Africa to probably say Madhya Pradesh or to any other state. It is just because we are understanding and we are bringing as much as we can all the niches that are found in that particular area of Africa to what is found in India, and then we displace. Then this trans-border shipment is done, right? Otherwise, it will not be sustainable. वो वहां से लेकर आएंगे and यहाँ पे उसका drastic effect दिख जाएगा. True? Let's move further. Very important topic, ecological levels of organization. Now, what is ecological levels of organization? Basically, we will start from a very basic and we will see how many levels it encompasses. ठीक है? Talking first is individual. This is the basic. An individual is an organism that has the capability of acting independently. It can be an animal, fungi, or plant. It is basic unit of study, like I said. What is population? Please note, interbreeding individuals of same species. If we are talking of, say, the cat family, in that we are talking of, say, big cats, probably lions, and in that big cats, those, say, basically the female big cat and the male big cat, or probably female lion or male lion, when they are interbreeding, this is known as, and whatever their offsprings are, that is known as population. Okay. What is community? A community is when several different species interact. Several different species means you have, say, the lions, the tigers, and then the cheetahs, all of them. Okay. So group of organisms which are interacting with each other. That can be in any form. What is ecosystem? I've already said. Now ecosystem is a community of organisms and their physical environments interacting in as an ecological unit. Okay. So also please remember, in many of your MCQs this can come. What is the functional unit of nature? It is an ecosystem, and it varies from a small pond to a large forest. Right? True? Because in a forest, if you consider, if you say a terrestrial ecosystem, in terrestrial ecosystem there are many communities, or you can say many populations of community, or you can say many individuals within that population of that particular community. Are you seeing? As I said, encompass, ek ke andar ek. Basic, individual. Further, population, same species please. Further, community, different species भी आ गए. Ecosystem, उस particular पूरे domain में कितने सारे communities आती है, that is known as one ecosystem. Right? Let's move further. After this is biome. What is biome? Where did we leave? Ecosystem pe. Biome is when there are more than one ecosystem, and then that is full, the whole thing is known as one biome. So if you say biome is a large community which is characterized by the major vegetation type and associated with fauna found in specific climate region. Right? How can I say? Now if you say there are tundra biome. Now what is tundra biome? Though we will be discussing this in further classes also in detail, but can you actually figure out the differences between tundra, taiga, grasslands, savannas, deserts and tropical forests? It's because all of them are characterized by one particular vegetation, by certain amount of fauna. You cannot say that the savannas, if the savanna biome I have said, it shall have the components of tundra. No. That's why the demarcation line has been made, and that's why they are known as biomes. Okay, so this was one ecological organization. So as I said, the features are the temperature, the soil, and the amount of light and water of what determine what the life exists in that particular biome. So all the abiotic components, like I said, have to be similar in that particular biome. Now no two biomes can be like I said, they cannot be same. They all have distinctive features to make them classify as a particular biome. There are more than a dozen ways to classify biomes. One of the simplest classification system has only two biomes, that is terrestrial and aquatic. Otherwise you can make segments of terrestrial also. After all, savannas, deserts and tropical forests are all terrestrial ecosystems, but still we can bifurcate as many as we want. But if you have to consider just say probably the most simplest way to classify biomes, you can simply say land and water. Right? After discussing biomes, we move further to biosphere. What is biosphere? Biosphere refers to the portion of the planet that contains living beings. Please note, I will be coming on to biosphere in just the next slide and will be illustrating what biosphere is, where many different components of our earth come into existence, but moreover, where only the living organisms are coming into picture. The biosphere encompasses majority of earth as well as a portion of oceans and atmosphere. That's why if I say biosphere is sum total of, yes, atmosphere, lithosphere is land, and hydrosphere, this is water, atmosphere is air. So air, land, water, जहाँ पे living organisms exist कर सके, that is known as biosphere. So you see, biosphere is encompassing the whole thing that we have just discussed, starting from individual, population, community, ecosystem, biome, and biosphere. True? Just a moment. True. Let's move further. Like I said, we will be discussing another topic of your syllabus, that is the constituents of biosphere, and let's discuss each one of them. I said biosphere is whatever constitutes the living aspect of an organism. Okay, so biosphere mein there's one more thing that's further moving. Atmosphere, lithosphere, and hydrosphere, these are the three components, ALH, and we will be discussing all these three components in detail. Let's discuss atmosphere first. What is atmosphere? Atmosphere is approximately 1000 kilometers in width, and this layer comprises only in width is 1000, but in thickness it's only 10 to 15 kilometers. And basically, this plants and animals undergo photosynthesis here, respiration here, with the help of gases of the troposphere. Let me actually move to the next slide first for you to understand the layers of atmosphere. What are the layers of atmosphere? Yes, these are the 5 layers of atmosphere. Starting, where are we? We are here, okay, somewhere down beneath here. And so this is the troposphere, that's the first layer. How much it ranges from? It ranges from 0 to 18 kilometers. Further, as we move, stratosphere, ranging to 50 kilometers. And in stratosphere, you see the hot air balloons. Further, as we move further, it's called mesosphere, ranging till 90 kilometers. All the rockets, the meteors are seen here. Further, as we move further, it's thermosphere, ranging to 800 kilometers. And what are we seeing here? Auroras, the very bright streaming rays that are dropping, that's known as thermosphere. Further, up till 3000 kilometers, it is satellites, spaceships, right? And even here you can see the temperatures are also there. So temperatures go from minus 56 to 2.5 to 86.5 to 1200. You do not need to remember these temperatures, but yes, the ranges should be very well clear in your mind when you go for your exam. Okay, let's move one slide before. So like I said, all these gases which are required for photosynthesis, for respiration, can be found in the troposphere. Further, let's read it out. Moreover, it is the sunlight which is prevalent throughout the atmosphere, which acts as a catalyzing energy for living organisms. The green plants incorporate a variety of inorganic elements and compounds. For example, during the process of converting solar energy into chemical energy, atmosphere's carbon dioxide enters the living world as the basic constituent of all organic compounds. What I'm trying to say here is that the troposphere, that is the first layer of atmosphere ranging up to around 18 kilometers, 12 to 18 ke beech mein, that has the necessary gases required for the plant's photosynthesis, our respiration, animals' respiration, and various other phenomena which are seen on the core level of earthly organisms. True? Let's move further. Now we will discuss the three main gases which are found: carbon dioxide, oxygen, and nitrogen. Please, in the comment section, do let me know that what is the composition of these three gases in our Earth's atmosphere as of now. Okay? Let's move further. We'll start with the first one, carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, along with water, is used by all plants in photosynthesis process to produce organic substances such as glucose, a vital molecule in living organisms, and oxygen. Similarly, in respiration, the food glucose is broken into carbon dioxide to the environment. Carbon dioxide of the atmosphere is replenished not only through the process of respiration or biological oxidation, but also through combustion. Okay? So, CO2 is generated, CO2 is used in different ways. What all? First, in photosynthesis. Second, in respiration. And it's replenished or will be regenerated through combustion. Next is oxygen. Again, a very important constituent of atmosphere. Like I said, necessary for survival. Oxygen is basically used in respiration, okay, in both plants and animals, including through it. The level of oxygen depicts the health of an ecosystem on this planet. True? Let's move further. Nitrogen, again an essential component. It is required by the organisms for the synthesis of proteins, nucleic acids, and other nitrogenous components. Okay, and it in nature, atmospheric nitrogen is fixed by specific organisms. There are industrial processes to convert atmospheric nitrogen into fertilizers. This is one utility of nitrogen, that it is used in fertilizers. That's why I say nitrogen fixation. Okay, so that's one aspect of. Fine, let's move further. Lithosphere. Like I said, we discussed first atmosphere in detail. Now we're going to discuss about lithosphere. Lithosphere is basically the land aspect of Earth. So it's a combination of Earth's crust and outer mantle. We are not taking the core. It provides the platform and the habitat of the biotic components in the ecosystem, right? Lithosphere has two functions. And what are the two functions? First, it provides a platform. Second, it is the source of nutrients and minerals for the growth and survival of ecosystem. Very well understandable, right? So these two functions encompasses lithosphere. Next is hydrosphere. Water is the most important constituent of all the biotic elements. In fact, almost of all the organisms having more than half of their constituents as water. It is inevitably required for the metabolism of living things. Moreover, Plants also require it for the distribution of nutrients throughout the bottom water. In the comment section, please tell me, for what do these two terms used in plants for? Used by plants for? What is xylem? What is phloem? Then, next is hydrosphere refers to the water bodies like lakes, ponds, rivers, oceans. The surface of the planet Earth is occupied by more than 71% water. On a large scale, water is cycled through elements, is partially used for metabolism activities, and is partially excreted as waste in the environment in various forms. And that's why when it is excreted as waste, we actually follow wastewater management. Okay, many wastewater management techniques are adopted by the government of India. Right? Let's move further. I didn't pay much importance to these three topics, maybe hydrosphere, atmosphere, and lithosphere, because this is very well taught in the basics of 8th, 9th, 10th, and probably we have grown up listening to these topics, so that's why. Anyhow, what is water? Now that is important aspect, because if you see in your syllabus also, the distribution of water is very much important. Right? Let's talk. Water consists of, like you all know, hydrogen and oxygen. Absolutely. H2 plus O2, H2O. Please follow the balancing, right? In solids and liquids and gaseous states, it's abundant and crucial in nature. Odorless, smell nahi hai. Tasteless, liquid at room temperature. It has the important ability to dissolve many other substances within itself. Now let's discuss the distribution of water on Earth. Now water, if you say majority is saline water. Saline means not for human consumption. So what is the fresh water that is available for us to have for drinking? It's only 2.5%. And amongst that 2.5%, I have given a further bifurcation. It shows that 68% is in glaciers and 30% is in groundwater. What is the current scenario? The groundwater is depleting. And glaciers are melting drastically. So what is the current water that is with us? 2.5% ka 1.2% on the surface. Even further, you can see this 1.2% distributed as permafrost in 69%, and lakes is only 20.9% or 1.2%, and blessed is used by found in rivers, marshes, soil ke moisture mein, living things mein, atmosphere mein. So you can see what small meager amount of water is there for our human consumption, and how callously we are wasting that. And that's what the study of whole environmental science, like I said in the very beginning of my lecture, is dealing with. It is making the human aware about various aspects on how to, first of all, identify and then rectify the problem of water. Let's move further. Now we are going to discuss with water cycle or hydrological cycle. What is this hydrological cycle and water cycle? Let's discuss. So I guess this shall be the last topic for today. I'll not be continuing after this. We'll continue in the next class. So hydrological cycle is the movement of water in the atmosphere forming a circular nature. We'll actually see the diagram first, or let's first read out and then we can go on to the diagram. So essentially the hydrological cycle involves the transfer of water from the ground to the atmosphere and to its return. Okay, going from following the evaporation, in plants transpiration, and then from in clouds condensation, and that condensation leading to precipitation, and then again surface runoff, and then you are again following the cycle. So it's basically you're following this circular cycle again and again. That is how the water is being moved in the atmosphere in a circular nature. We'll discuss each one of these terms: evaporation, transpiration, condensation, precipitation, and runoff. All these 5 terms we'll be discussing in further slides. What is evaporation? Like I said, the water from the ground is moving to the atmosphere. How? But it is a process by which a substance undergoes from liquid to gas. Now tell me one thing, this water that is moving from here, it's in a liquid state, and this water is moving to the atmosphere or probably to the sky in gaseous state. So what can I say? That evaporation is that stage of water cycle where the water is being transferred from the medium liquid to the medium gas. Water is the primary substance of interest in relation to evaporation. For evaporation, energy is required, thus the source of energy comes from the sun, the earth, and the atmosphere. Okay? Because if the energy component is not there, this water cannot be transferred from liquid to gas. For instance, it is a phenomenon that we encounter in our daily lives also. Yes, how? Because when we see when our bodies get warmer, either because of the surrounding air temperature or physical activity leading to sweating and the release of water onto our skin, the purpose of this process is to utilize the body's heat to evaporate the liquid, dissipating heat and cooling down the body. This is very prominent and very simple experiment or example that we see almost every day, that because when you are feeling hot or probably when we are doing some activity, some sort of physical activity, we tend to sweat, and that small amount of water that we can see on our skin, it's basically body's heat only which is evaporating, right? And then further, when it gets evaporated, it cools down. Simple example. What is transpiration? It is almost similar to evaporation, but it is only from plants through the small openings called stomata. Every leaf has these small, very tiny openings through which the water is moved by the effect of energy, and these openings are stomata. These stomata are located on the underside of the leaf and is connected to the plant's vascular tissues. In most plants, transpiration occurs passively and is influenced by the humidity, air, and the moisture level in the soil. Okay, so these 3 components are very important, that not only the air or the humidity, but also the soil's moisture level affects this transpiration. True? Please remember these 3 components very vividly. I'll again mention humidity, air, and the moisture level in the soil. Okay? And only a small portion, around 1% of the water transpired by a plant, is utilized for its growth, while the remaining 99% is released in the atmosphere. Only 1%. is used back by the plant. 99% is moved above. True? Let's move further. What is condensation? Now it is the process by which that same water vapor is transforming into liquid state. Ulta, reverse cycle. In the atmosphere, condensation can manifest as clouds or dew. Small droplets you have seen. For instance, it is also the process of water droplets. Yes, you can see a cold drink or a bottle of that lacks insulation also have that small water vapors, small drops of water. So that is also an example of condensation. It is not solely dependent on temperature or energy, but also the temperature difference between air and the dew point temperature. Now what is this air and dew point temperature? If anybody can comment in the comment section. What is this air and dew point temperature? Remember that the dew temperature is always either less than or equal to the air temperature. So the dew temperature is the temperature at which the air becomes saturated and is unable to hold any water. अब उससे ज़्यादा वो water vapor नहीं hold कर सकता, and it has to form small water droplets. It has to transform into liquid. That is known as the dew point temperature. Thus the cooling causes the water vapor to condense, and when the air temperature and dew point are equal, it leads to foggy conditions. Getting my point? Condensation is the opposite of evaporation. We have already seen, it's a very well understandable statement. When condensation occurs, high energy of water vapor compared to the liquid water is released in the form of heat energy. This release of heat contributes, yes, hurricanes are also a consequence of over condensation. Right? Let's move further. What is precipitation? When these small particles collide and merge and become too large for the air to sustain, they cannot hold that anymore. So it has to descend. It has to come back. Now this can be in the form of rain, hail, snow, sleet, all different forms of precipitates that we have seen in our society over the period of time, and the process of precipitation serves as a main mechanism to obtain fresh water. Alright? What is runoff? Runoff is when there is extreme precipitation. When the topsoil is being washed away. And why is this washed away? Immense precipitation. And this only causes leaching of soil nutrients. So let's read this out also formally, that runoff occurs when there is extreme precipitation and the ground is saturated and it cannot absorb water anymore. The water does not percolate down beneath the soil anymore, so runoff starts. And the runoff water evaporates. Again the cycle goes above into the atmosphere, but most water in lakes and rivers returns to the oceans. Right? If runoff water flows into a lake only with no outlet for water to flow out, then evaporation is the only means for the water to return to the atmosphere. These are certain examples. Now very vividly it is said, agar sirf runoff is going into the lake, there is no outlet ki bahar jaye, then water can only evaporate. And as the water evaporates, the salts are left behind. Impurities are left behind. Evaporation of this runoff into the atmosphere begins the hydrological cycle again. Some of the water percolates in the soil and into the ground, and only to be drawn into the plants again for transpiration to take place. So both things are happening. A runoff is basically causing, I'll go back to the diagram. Yeah. So as you can see, this runoff, much of the water is going into the lakes and oceans, but some of this water is actually being evaporated also. And when this water, because when the soil is not able to percolate much water inside, it tries to evaporate above. And if the plant, this is one phenomena. Second phenomena, if it is used by the plants, absolutely well enough. If the soil beneath it is being used, it's perfectly fine. Or through transpiration, again water is moving above. You're getting? This is the whole cycle which we have understood and learnt in today's class. We will discuss biomes in detail tomorrow. Okay. Before that, let's just sum up today's class once more so that everything is crystal clear in a small recapitulation. Right. So as we began our class today, we discussed with environment, ecology and environmental science. I told you what environmental science is. I told you it is an interdisciplinary subject which basically deals with all the physical, chemical and biological components and their relationships. I told what is environment. It is basically the relationship between an organism. I also told what is ecology. It is basically the study of the relationships between organism and its environment. Right? Environment was sum total of land, water, air, interrelationships. Further, as we move further, we discussed about the scope. It is having immense and wide scope that is being seen in various fields of studies throughout the world to solve the problem of pollution, degradation. Further, what is the importance? I've told you environment has issues which are not nationally or locally defined but globally defined. So we can see environmental issues are being global. We can also see that development has caused various such issues and problems which only environmental science can help us to decipher. I've also moved further and told you that increase in population has also caused a lot of environment menace, and there's an alternative solution, which such solution states that all the developed and developing should come under one umbrella and to focus on sustainability. I told you that there are many other terms that needs to be discussed, and these terms are ecology, the study of interactions in ecosystem, basically concurrence of biotic and abiotic together. Environment, sum total of all conditions. True? Ecotone, distinctive from one ecosystem to other system. There is a defined distinction. Ecological is a gradual distinction. You will not be able to see that. Edge species which are between that ecotone and which has where the community of one is increasing and the other is remaining stagnant, and then those species are known as edge species. Effect is known as edge effect, seen in an ecotone. Ecological niche, for every organism there is one particular unique role and position. Ecological niche can be of various types: habitat, reproductive, physical, chemical, and for any organism or any species to sustain in their natural habitat, we need to understand its niche of all types. Ecological levels of organization. Basic level is individual, Then you move on to population, community, ecosystem. Okay. As I said very simply, individual is the basic. Population is the interbreeding. Community is the several different species, and ecosystem is functional unit, basically encompassing everything. Biome is when there are 2-3 ecosystems collaborating. Biosphere is the whole living organisms under one. Biosphere comprises of atmosphere, lithosphere and hydrosphere. ALH, atmosphere, I told you, consisting of the gases for the requirement of photosynthesis and respiration, having 5 layers: tropo, strato, meso, thermo, exo, and ranging from 1850-90 to 800 and then to thousands. Then you have carbon dioxide, oxygen and nitrogen. I've told you these importance, how they are first of all generated and how they are used in all three: oxygen, nitrogen, okay, seen in fertilizers and nitrogenous compounds. Lithosphere is the segment of land dealing with crust and mantle, and it has 2 functions, which deals with terrestrial and aquatic platform for living, and then source of nutrients and minerals for regeneration. Hydro again consists of biotic components, has 71% water, consists of soil, ponds, rivers, lakes. Okay. I told you, very important, hydrogen, water has 2 components, oxygen and hydrogen, but how much is available for us to drink? The whole demarcation has been shown out that initially it's just 2.5%, but out of that 2.5%, only surface we have 1.2, and out of that 1.2, on other things we have the sum total of all these, nearly 10%. We're discussing with hydrological cycle as the last topic for today. Water cycle, I told you 5 layers, stages, or not layers, basically stages: transpiration, condensation, precipitation and surface runoff, basically runoffs. How these are dealing: evaporation is when the liquid goes from the liquid state, water goes from the liquid state to the water vapor state, but because of energy, sunlight. Similarly seen in transpiration, when the water cannot much percolate within the soil, it has to go above through tiny openings in the stomata, and that stomata basically transpires the water. Only 1% is used by themselves, by the plants itself, and 99 is gone into the atmosphere. Then condensation occurs. What is condensation? It's basically that stage when the dew point temperature is less than or probably the equal to the air temperature, when the water within that water vapor stage is being held in that particular clouds, and is on that verge of a descent towards the ground. What is precipitation? When the water cannot withhold much in that particular stage, water vapor cannot withhold much in that particular stage, and it has to fall onto the ground in forms of maybe rain, hails, sleet, and all this encompasses fresh water. What is runoff? When heavy precipitation occurs and the water in the soil cannot sustain more water and it has to run off, and because of that leaching of nutrients happens, topsoil runs off, and those runoff is again evaporated upstairs, or if it goes into the leaves, it is transpired. If it goes into the plants, it is transpired. True? Having said all this, we have discussed, we have discussed till here, and that's all for today. It was the first lecture, first session. Maybe there are certain amount of technical glitches, but we shall be covering and improvising in that. Please continue to follow our lecture series so as to conquer the lecturership of 10+2 in environmental science by JKPCS. Probably the exam is scheduled in the month of May, and we shall be covering our syllabus well in advance so as for you to have maximum selection from our institute. Thank you.